Good morning, Napa Valley Unitarian Universalists, and welcome to this week's online worship service. I am Hoenicke, and I'm the celebrant for this morning's service. Our parish minister, Reverend Lisa Heik, is away today, and I'm pleased to introduce to you our guest minister, Reverend Ben Meyers. Reverend Ben is celebrating his 25th year in the UU ministry. He's currently serving his 8th year as the lead minister at the UU congregation in San Mateo. Reverend Ben has been recognized for his leadership by PFLAG, which stands for Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, serves in his local NWACP branch, and is a founding member of the San Mateo County Showing Up for Racial Justice chapter. Thank you, Reverend Ben, for being with us today, even if it's just in virtual form. All of you are welcome here if you are come skipping with joy, and you're welcome if you're heavy with sorrow. You're welcome if you're deeply lonely, and you're welcome if you are surrounded by friends and family. You're welcome whomever you love, whatever your gender, whatever your skin color, whatever your education, whatever your beliefs about God or not God, and whatever the flags of your heritage. You're welcome if you're looking for a community that will love you just as you are, and you're welcome if you seek a community that will help you grow. Each week, we join Unitarian Universalists all around the world in lighting a flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith. You are invited to light a chalice or a candle at home now with these words from the Passover Haggadah. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. I invite you now into a moment of receptivity and reflection as we share the joys and sorrows of this community. We make sacred the milestones of our lives when we share them with each other. I have here a bowl of water and some stones. If you'd like to share your joy or sorrow with all here, you can type it into the chat feature, and I will place a stone in the bowl for you. If you have a joy or sorrow, or even just a concern that you do not need to share with everyone, put stone in the chat, and I will place a stone in the bowl for you. I place one last stone in the bowl, in honor of those joys and sorrows that we mine in the silence of our hearts.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Ben Meyers, minister of the Unitarian Universalists of San Mateo, and I'm so glad to be a part of this service of worship, of exploration, and healing this morning. I'm thankful to Reverend Lisa for the invitation to be here today, and I'm so grateful to the hospitality and partnership I've had with Rainer and Brian in making this connection possible. To say this is a time of unprecedented challenge is an immense understatement. It seems that every day some new challenge emerges to increase the amount of stress, levels of anxiety, or isolation before us. And yet, we know that the very things that helped us get through other struggles and challenges in our lives are still the very things we need to practice and share with one another. Gathering as we are now, reaching our hearts out to one another, pausing to take stock, opening to the healing balm found in reflection and silence and breathing, is exactly what we need to increase our ability to cope and share love and empathy for all the ways life is with us right now. And so, let us enter into a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer, of stillness, of simply breathing together. Lean back, take a deep breath, feel the surface beneath you as it supports you now. Feel the love of this community as it surrounds and enfolds you wherever you are right now. Feel your breath as it flows in and out of your body. Feel your heart beating. How is it with your heart? Does your heart feel cut off, shielded, cocooned, closed off to feeling? Or do you feel your heart opening to all that it is holding right now? Is it tender, fragile? Is it brimming with the pain of loss or fear, with grief or anxiety? Has your heart healed? Has your heart been broken and healed so many times that you now feel that it is safely vulnerable to the world? Knowing that true growth comes not without pain. Knowing that tears may wear down barriers. Knowing that we may carry the hearts of others even when our own is too heavy for us to bear. Knowing that we may be buoyed and uplifted by the care of another, even though far and distanced from us. None of us has an unblemished heart, not one. For us, such perfection cannot be found among the living. And we who are alive still have much to feel and heal and grow within ourselves. This is our time to rise above our fears and worries and to know, deep in our hearts, deep in our bones, that it is in loving through the hard night of the soul that we arrive to new levels of maturity and grace and wholeness. So let us give thanks even for the broken places in our hearts and in our lives, for it is through such brokenness that we truly touch one another, and through touching one another that the world is healed. In silence now, let us give thanks for this time this tenderness, and for the love that heals all things. Let it be so. Amen.
"17 Things" by J. Cole. 17 things you have to learn for yourself as a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, asexual, pansexual, or otherwise queer youth by the time you are 17. 1 is that the first Pride was a riot. I don't mean that it was full of laughter or that it was some grand party where everyone spiraled up to dance among the stars. Because the only glittering that night was broken glass on cobblestones. The first Pride was a riot on the back streets of New York, and they never tell us that that night we won. They never tell us that it was the only protest in a decade full of turmoil, where the cops had to hide from the shouting, dancing rioters who fought to reclaim the only ground they had ever been able to say was theirs. Stonewall is only an echo of a name in our history, Christopher Street Liberation Day even less. But I swear to you, the first thing you need to know is, the first Pride was a riot. And 2, around the same time it took place, it was a debated topic in the gay community whether or not it would be too bold to say that they weren't mentally ill. Which, 3, homosexuality was only removed from the American Psychiatric Association's list of mental illnesses in 1974. Congratulations. All it took was a riot, and 5 more years of protests before they decided with a vote that, whoops, we were never actually mentally ill. Except for there are still teenagers being tortured today in what some dare blaspheme as therapy, used to destroy their self-identity in the hopes of making them normal. Except for, the queer community still carries overwhelmingly high rates of poverty and homelessness and depression. Did you know that 5, over half the children forced into conversion therapy commit suicide? Or 6, that before the AIDS crisis, lesbians were considered hangers-on by much of the gay community. Because it turns out, 7, you can wear a rainbow on your shirt and still be a bigot. There are people who stick rainbows in their ears or wear them on their fingers or slap them across their cheeks in badges of defiance and will still hate you for the color of your skin or the size of your thighs or your gender or the genders you like to kiss or don't. Don't ask me why this happens, it just does. I think it might be that we've all been taught to hate ourselves for so damn long that we don't know how to create a space with no hate. Or maybe it's that the space seemed too small, because 8, there are people who will tell you that you are not enough, that you do not reach the magical benchmark of gay enough to pass through the gate, even, especially, when you are some flavor of the rainbow other than straight out gay. 8, this is bull. 8, those people are bull. 8, you are enough. 8, there is always enough room. 9, there is no overarching homosexual agenda. Sorry. We're all kind of flailing along in here trying to figure out some way to make it work when most of us have nothing in common except that society looked at us in different ways and decided we didn't fit. So we could all go be misfits together, under one big rainbow flag. But just so you know, 10, there are plenty of other flags. There is one for you, I promise. And 11, misfits may not all need the same things, but we need to stick together, especially in a world where, 12, refer to point 7, there are lesbians who hate other lesbians for having the audacity to be born in a body that the world looked at and assumed boy. Which brings me to 13. There is so much to understand. 14. You need to understand because we need to stick together. And to stick together, we don't have to be the same, but we do have to understand. And it will be hard because you were probably thrown into this world with no warning because 15. Being queer is not genetic, and we are not unique among minorities in that we must collect our heritage through broken bits of history and research in a world constantly working to erase us. Like we are yesterday's wrong answers. But we are unique in that when we try to prove our legacy, we can be laughed down, or re-erased, or flat out ignored. But I swear to you, you have a history as old as Alexander the Great, as brilliant as Sappho, as dignified as Abraham Lincoln, and as proud as Eleanor Roosevelt. But even with that behind us, 16, they have always watched us die. Because, 16, even though the bystander effect is bull, no one ever mentions that Kitty Genovese was a lesbian. 16, Ronald Reagan was a mass murderer and needs to be remembered that way. 16, our children, your brothers and sisters and siblings of all stripes and all colors and sexualities and genders are being murdered every day through neglect and rejection and hate. 16, there is an entire generation of gay and bisexual men missing from history because the government chose to do nothing when they were dying by the thousands. 16. We died from the disease and died from going back into the closet and died for staying there and died for coming out. 16. They laughed at our deaths because they believed their God was punishing us for daring to love. 16. The grieving ensured the ashes of your forerunners rest on the lawn of the White House, because 16, they have always watched us die. 17. 17, you are allowed to be angry. You do not have to be one of the nice gays, or one of the nice trans, or sweet or kind or educate the rest of the world in anything less than a yell. You are allowed to be so furious it scalds your bones, at the way we are forgotten and passed over, at the way as soon as June becomes July we are expected to go back to dying in silence, and mourning our dead and kissing in closets, where no one can be offended at the sight of us. You are allowed to be angry and scream down the stars so they shatter like broken glass at your feet. Because you know what? 1. The first pride was a riot.
No, your mom don't get it, and your dad don't get it, Uncle John don't get it. And you can't tell Grandma 'cause her heart can't take it, and she might not make it. They say don't dare, don't you even go there, cutting off your long hair, you do as you're told. Tell you wake up, go put on your makeup, this is just a phase you're gonna outgrow. There's something wrong in the village, in the village. Oh, they stare in the village, in the village. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's true, it's true. There's something wrong with the village, with the village. There's something wrong with the village. Feel the rumors follow you from Monday all the way to Friday dinner. You got one day of shelter, then it's Sunday, hell to pay, you young lost sinner. Well, I've been there, sitting in that same chair, whispering the same prayer 500,000 times. It's a lie, though, buried in disciples. One page of the Bible isn't worth a life. There's something wrong in the village, in the village. Oh, they stare in the village, in the village. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's true, it's true. There's something wrong with the village, with the village. There's something wrong with the village. There's something wrong in the village, in the village. Oh, they stare in the village, in the village. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's true, it's true. There's something wrong with the village, with the village. There's something wrong with the village.
Good morning again, and blessings to you all, wherever you are at this moment in time. Again, my name is Ben Meyers. I use the pronouns he, him, and let me say again how happy I am to be here with you all this morning. As this is a recording, I think it's also true that you are all here with me in spirit when I recorded this earlier in the week. Now, in many ways, the adjustments and changes we've all had to make in order to ensure each other's health and well-being has led to a larger circle of connection and knowledge of our various UU congregations. And although we all wish we could be in closer proximity to one another and the people in our respective beloved communities, the new reality of no longer being limited by geography allows us to practice social distancing while expanding our spiritual connections. And yet, this is hard on us human beings. I know that's stating the obvious, but a lot of ministry is about stating the obvious. The world is constantly changing, and the arc of the universe is ever bending towards greater justice. But we, human beings, don't like to change. In fact, we really don't like it. We often resist it, we deny it, we make war with it. We'd rather cling to what we know because the rate and pace of change can be overwhelming. And yet the world is calling on us to see these changes into being, to create the world we long to see. And so we need one another to help us through these changes, to minister to us into new ways of being, and to state the obvious that we struggle with. To quote one white, cisgendered male of some renown, Ralph Waldo Emerson, people wish to be settled in life, but only to the degree that we are unsettled. Is there any hope for us? Well, today I wish to bring you some hope by first bringing you some more obvious and unsettling words. The title of this sermon comes from an African proverb, which is often quoted amongst many liberal, socially conscious circles. And it is that it takes a village to raise a child, which is to say that all children are our children and that all children are included in the health, safety, and well-being of the village. But the sad truth is that this is just not so. It simply is not true. Not all children, all people are welcome in the village right now. Some, sadly, are outcast, and today I'm talking specifically about our transgendered, non-binary, and non-conforming people, our children. I'm talking about those who look around the village and don't see themselves, and so they do not feel like they belong in the village. And hence the title of my sermon today, There's Something Wrong with the Village. Marian Wright Edelman taught us that children can only learn from what they see. When our transgendered, queer, and non-binary children do not see themselves in the village, there's something wrong with the village. A recent survey by GLAAD, G-L-A-A-D, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, tells us that 80% of the people in the United States have never had a direct experience with a transgendered person. And if you think about it, this 80% includes transgendered people themselves. Again, if you don't see yourself and you don't see your children, there's something wrong in the village. And even worse, the images we do see in the media are often gross misrepresentations and denigrating presentations of transgendered, non-binary, and non-conforming people. And these caricatures are usually created by cisgendered binary writers, directors, producers, and actors, and yet they are the main source of our introduction to trans, non-binary experience, which wrongly form and define our perceptions and attitudes towards trans people, and reinforce the stigma that feeds and fuels a social dysphoria that is damaging, oppressive, and dangerous. Clearly, there's something wrong with the village. It is this dysphoria, these false images, that create loathing in cis people and self-loathing in trans, non-conforming people. And this is the reason more than 40% of our transgender teens attempt suicide at least once, and that many succeed. I could go on. I won't, but obviously something is wrong with the village. And knowing this, being unsettled but aware of this, the most important question is, how do we repair the village? How do we go about making the proverb, "It takes a village to raise a child," a truthful statement? Well, first, we need to have our minds blown. We have to literally dismantle the binary box that most all of us were put in at birth, and some of us are still literally trapped in. Here's a poem by David Breeden that says it well for me. The road traveled by, like the ones not taken, is not a fork. That's too simple a thought for a journey as complex as life. It's not like flipping a coin, heads or tails, black or white, rich or poor, him or her. Either or? No way. Neither nor? No. This is not a this or that world, yes or no. It's this and that, and all of the above, and more than meets the eye. The road we must travel goes every which way at once. There, they, them, his, hers, thee, she, here, X. There's always more to the story of being in the world. For me, a cisgendered white heterosexual male raised in a blue-collar family in a Bible-based community in Indianapolis, Indiana, I needed to have my deeply entrenched binary thinking patterns unsettled, disrupted, dismantled, and challenged a little bit every day. Where and when I grew up, I was pretty thoroughly shaped in a this or that world, as deigned and defined by that creation story in Genesis. The Lord God made them all. Male and female he made them, which is just a story that was made up to describe basic biology. But there's so much more to the story. There's always more to the story of being in the world. And the path to living outside the box is a constant one for me as a parent, advocate, and ally. Those binary-based, cis-normative, heteronormative biases are so ingrained. I still struggle to see the limitations of my own shadow, to notice the blinders that limit my heart from seeing beyond the binary. I am blessed to have many people to help me see, hear, feel myself when I once again forget, mistakenly exclude those outside the comfortable narrative of my upbringing. To paraphrase Einstein, we can't solve our present problems with the same thinking that created the problems. We have to retrain our brains. And next, to apply the teachings of Brian Stevenson, the founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative and author of the book Just Mercy, we have to get in closer proximity to the issue. And one way to start is to simply model your understanding of non-binary identities by always adding your preferred pronouns when you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Ben, and I prefer the pronouns he, him. It's a simple and effective way of recognizing that assumptions about one's identity based on your perception of them can be wrong or even off-putting. So you model that understanding by raising the issue in this way. By using your pronouns, you tell other people how you want to be addressed, and you send the message that you, in return, want to accurately address those you are with, not assuming you know that information based on assumed roles, looks, or presentation. We have to relearn, re-educate, reprogram ourselves, and this is our spiritual work to do. It is not the work of our transgender friends, colleagues, or children to do it for us, although we should definitely listen, learn, and follow their lead. So, what are some other steps we can take to repair the village? Well, in the time I have left, I'll share some of the things I've learned and recommend to you. First of all, Google it. Explore for yourself. Invest your time and resources in your own education. I would suggest spending some time with the work of the late, great Leslie Feinberg, an academic who literally legitimized the status and understanding of transgendered people within the ivory towers of academia and helped to empower countless people. And another favorite of mine is the irrepressible Natalie Wynn. She's a philosopher and educator in a class of her own, who embodies the inherent dignity and worth of everybody. With the exception of bigots and haters, she suffers no fools. She'll challenge and enlighten you, and you can subscribe to her work on YouTube. I have learned a lot from Natalie Wynn, W-Y-N-N. And also, have fun with it. I know it's a serious subject, and there's a lot at stake, and it's challenging and requires change on our part, and that can be uncomfortable. But if you're committed to learning and relearning this in order to truly be an ally and accomplice to transgender people, then why not also enjoy it? Right now on Netflix, there's a program produced by Laverne Cox, which features the stories of a lot of transgendered folk. Actors, actresses, writers, producers, historians, and others who do a great job of unfolding the ways in which trans people have been portrayed in the popular media in the past, and they tell their own stories too. And there's always more to the story, right? And the other nugget is the TV series Pose. It's a saga about the lives of trans women and men living their lives in New York in the 80s. The liberating thing about this show is that it is mostly written, directed, produced, and acted by trans people, representing themselves in a riveting and revolutionary way. It is really compelling quality entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying one's education. And it's binge-worthy watching during this time of lockdown. And lastly for now, take care of yourself. Be gentle with yourself amidst all this struggle, change, and transformational learning. In this time when we are all a little crispy, both by the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic impact it is having on our world, and by the daily disengagement of dismantling our racism, and for white people, waking up to all the ways the village is broken, we need to practice what we've always known to be good for us in order to take care of our bodies, our hearts, and our souls, and even more so now. So I'm going to end with stating one more obvious thing this morning. We need one another to survive. I need you, and you need me, and none of us is truly healthy and safe and whole until and unless all of us are. Thank goodness I'm the parent of a transgendered teen. Thank goodness I'm the colleague of transgendered ministers and religious professionals, and thank goodness I'm a friend, ally, advocate, and accomplice to transgendered people. To restore, repair, rebuild the village, I'm finding that we need to drop the modifier of trans. Because trans people are people. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. And my son is my son. So please take good care of your body, mind, and soul. Eat right, sleep well, exercise, and don't forget to pray, meditate, spend some time in silence just to quiet your mind and rest your heart. Know that you are a part of the whole, and you are loved by a force greater than all of us that accepts you and loves you just the way you are. We can rest in that love and be emboldened by it to repair ourselves, our village, and the world. Thanks for your time, your attention, and your desire to restore the village. Amen.
Each fourth Sunday, our congregation donates our plate collection to a local organization that shares our values. Today, that organization is the Susquehanna Intertribal Council. As some of you may recall, the Susquehanna Intertribal Council is promoting cultural exchange and supporting communication between indigenous peoples and the broader community. Their executive director, Charlie Toledo, sends her virtual greetings and wants you to know that any donations will go to support the development and maintenance of Susquehanna House, a 20-acre site in the northeastern part of Napa County, being used to preserve, disseminate, and protect the Native American traditions, songs, dances, basketry, and ceremonies of indigenous peoples of the Americas. The environment is being developed with experimental and state-of-the-art construction materials and innovations, which will be a blend of traditional and very modern adaptations. School is implementing permaculture garden techniques, minimizing need for water and maximizing the use of organic matter and compost. This land base is being used as a safe place for tribes and tribal peoples to meet and plan for community building and economic development projects. The construction is a prototype that can be replicated in communities around the world. All check donations or donations that you want to do via our website will be sent to the Share the Plate recipient unless the check or the virtual contribution is marked as pledge in the memo line. All checks should be made out to NVUU. Thank you for your many gifts. All you do and all you give are vital to building the beloved community in our region and beyond. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
My friends, we have an enormous opportunity to change some of the oldest injustices in history, which is to change everything. May we stay vulnerable. May we stay tender. May we take action. May we rebuild the village so that it is safe shelter for all, with eyes and hearts and minds wide open. Go in peace, live in grace, return in love. Amen.